Hello everyone, Reza here. If you want to learn how to create your first Power App for Microsoft Teams, then this video is for you. This video is a step-by-step tutorial on creating an expense request Power App inside Dataverse for Teams. We will create tables, relationships, build the Canvas app inside Teams, create connected form controls, and a lot more. So let's check this out in action. In Microsoft Teams, I have a team called Contoso Team. I am playing the role of the owner of this team. My team has members and guest users. To begin creating Power Apps for Microsoft Teams, on the left-hand navigation rail, head over to Apps and search for Power Apps. We will get the Power Apps app for Teams, select this, and add this app. In my case, I already have this app added, so I can straight away go and open the app. Once I open the app, on the left-hand navigation rail, I will have Power Apps as one of the options. I would recommend to go ahead and right-click and pin this app on the left-hand navigation rail. To create the Power App, click on Start Now. This will list out all the Microsoft Teams where you are either an owner or a member. I will search for my team name, which is Contoso. Now, if this is the first time an app is being created for a specific team, you will get this message on the top that says there is some setup that needs to be performed before you can start creating apps. And the setup here is the creation of an environment for that team. I will go ahead and click Create. Once we get the success message that the Power App is ready to go, it will directly launch the Power App Studio experience within Microsoft Teams. Our use case is an expense reporting Power App. I will give my app a name. Click Save. This now creates a Power App for that specific team. We need a data source to store information about the expense details that the users will enter using this app. To do that, on the left-hand navigation rail, head over to Data, go to Add Data, and we have the ability within Teams to create tables. This database is known as Microsoft Dataverse for Teams. This is included for no additional licensing cost as long as you have a valid Teams license. I'll click on Create New Table. I'll give my table a name. This will be my expense table. Click Create. This now will launch the table creation experience for us inline inside Teams. By default, it creates a column name of type text. You can select this and edit the name of the column. I will rename this to expense title. You can go to advanced options and increase the length of this column if required. I'll keep it as 100 and click Save. We can add additional columns on the fly. I will click on the plus icon, create a column called Description of type text. Here I will increase the max length to 1000 and click Create. I'll add another column, call it Expense Date. Type. There are various types of columns we can create. I will go and select the Date column and click Create. I'll create a column called Expense Type. This I will create of type Choice. So the user can select from one of the choices provided. Here I'll add 3 choices: Project, Training, and Miscellaneous. I'll click Create. Next, I'll add a column to track the status of the expense. I'll call it Expense Status. I'll pick the type Choice, Pending, Approved, and Rejected. I will click Create. This completes my expenses table. At the bottom right, I will click on Close. This now goes ahead and associates this table or connects to this table directly in my Power Apps. This database is relational in nature. For expense reporting, users add an expense and then create line items. So one expense is related to many line items. I need to create a second table now to store the line item information associated with the expense. For that, I will go to add data once again, click on create new table and create a table here called line item. I'll click create. Once again, I'll rename the name column. I'll call this title. I'll create another column, description of type text. The line items need to be associated with a category. So I create a category column of type choice. I've provided 3 choices: gas, food, and miscellaneous. I'll click create. And here, I would like to relate my line items table with my expenses table. So for that, I will add a column. I will call this expense lookup. The type of this column will be a lookup column. And the table that I would like to relate this to is my expense table. I will click create. Once I have my columns defined, I will click on close. This will go ahead and connect the line items table to my PowerApp. To build the screen for the user to interact with these tables, we have a starter screen template option directly available for us. Start the screen with data. Let's select this. And here, let's begin with the expenses table. So I will select expenses. The moment I do this, PowerApps will automatically create an experience for the user to interact with the expenses table. If you head over to the tree view, in the screen, we have controls created based on a template. In the right container section, we have a form that is connected to the expenses table. And in the left container section, we have a gallery that is connected to the expenses table. Let's preview the app and create a new record in our expenses table. This opens up the form experience. I can enter the title of the expense, description, pick the expense date, pick the type of the expense, and we have our expense status column showing up. For now, let's just pick pending and submit this. This record that we created gets stored in our expenses table, and the gallery on the left hand side showcases all the expenses. I can create additional records. They will all line up on the left hand side, or I can select an expense from my gallery and edit the existing data, submit, or I can select an item and delete. Opens up this confirmation dialog. I'll click delete. It will delete the expense from the expenses table. We'll go back to the edit experience of the app. So I'll close the preview mode. Recommendation would be to save the app at this point, because if for some specific reason you had a network issue or you closed the browser or the browser crashed, you may lose all your work. So ensure you save the app once so that autosave takes effect, and every 2 minutes, PowerApps now will automatically start saving the changes you make. Let's start adding additional features to our expense report app. On the top left, I have the app name label. It's called expenses. I have the ability here to change the text. I'll use an emoji, and I've changed the text to expense reporting. Next, I will select the new record section. In here, I have a label control that specifies new record. Users are creating expenses, so I will change the text to new expense. With the gallery control selected, in the properties tab, under layout, there are multiple layout types that we can select from. You are free to change this to any style of your choice, or you can start from blank. In this case, I will change the style to title and subtitle. Then I will edit the gallery by clicking on this pencil icon. The first label control shows the expense title. The second label control is showcasing the description. You're free to choose any column values from your expense table right here. Let's say I would like to showcase the expense date. So here my formula would be this item dot, and it will list out all the columns within that table. One of my columns is called expense date. So I will select that, and it puts in the date of the expense. PowerApps has a wide variety of formulas we can play with. One of them is known as text, which allows us to change the format of the date column. I will format this date column as month, date, the day, the year. If I preview the app, we can see that formatting in action. We will try and showcase the expense status with a visual indicator, edit the gallery, go to add, and under shapes, we have a circular shape. I'll pick that. We can resize this, and I will position this on the left. The shape has a property called fill. By default, it has the purple color theme of Microsoft Teams. We will change this based upon the status of my expense. I will leverage a switch function. Switch this item dot expense status. What's the matching value? We have three values: pending, approved, and rejected. That was the choice column we created. Now here it's important to leverage the enums that are provided for those values. Every choice column that you create in Dataverse for Teams has a respective enum type. To get that, I will search for expense. Here I have this type called expense status. That's the name of my column, bracket, the name of my table, which is expenses. So I'll select this, dot, this will list out all my choice values. If it is pending, I will put the color orange. If it is approved, I will put the color green. And if it is rejected, I will put the color red. Now this control also has another property called hover fill. So when the user hovers over it, it has a specific color. Let's change this to self.fill. Let's go ahead and preview the app. My expense is in pending. The gallery on the left-hand side has that visual indicator. If I was to edit the item and let's say change the status to approved and submit, we can see that color changing on the fly. For the form control, we will rename this to a more user-friendly name. I'll call this my expense form. In this form control, we have data cards. And these data cards relate to the columns that we have in our table. I would like to add a header control to show that this form is related to the expense information. With the form control selected, head over to edit fields. We can add additional fields from our table as cards on the form control, or we can reorder the cards by moving them up or down. We even have the ability to change the type of the cards. So description is a text type field here. I'm going to change this to multi-line text. So it creates that additional real estate for the user. To add that header experience, we'll go to more actions on the top and add a custom card. This card, I will place it right at the top. I will close the fields experience. Here is the card. I will select this, and in this, I will add a label control. I'll position the label on the top left of the card. And for the width property of the label, I will replace this with parent.width. That means whatever is the width of the card, the label will take that entire width. I will center align the text of the label. The label text, I will change it to expense information. I'll increase the font size. For this custom card control, I wanted to span the entire width. So I can select this and drag it across. It's important that you also set the width fit property of this card to on, so it will automatically take the entire width. This card control, and select this and reduce the height. I can give it a background color. For the label control, I will change its color to a lighter shade. I will click preview, and this now has this header experience for the user, which is expense information. To align or position the cards inside the form control, first you turn off width fit for that card, and then you have the ability to decide the width. So I want the expense title to be placed here, followed by the description. Once again, I'll turn off width fit, give it more real estate, and then you can also select and drag and place the card. Once I'm sure that I want to show two columns in this first row, select the first card, turn on width fit again, select the second card, turn on width fit. If I preview this, you see how those two cards are sitting in that second row. I want to update the width for this, turn off width fit. Same thing for expense type, same thing for approval status. I'll select this, move it up. And now for all of these cards, I will go back and turn on width fit, so it automatically takes the real estate available based on the dimensions of the screen. With my form control selected, I will drag this on the top. Below this form control, I would like to show my line items information. I need a header for that. With the container selected, I will go to add. Here, I will use a different technique. I'll add a button control, position it right below the form control experience. The width of the button, I will set it to parent.width, so it takes the entire width. This button is meant for viewing purposes only, so I'll select the display mode as view. I will change the disabled color to the dark purple theme. The text, I will use line items information. I'll change the font size. And the disabled color, I will set this to the lighter shade. I would like to add a form so users can create line items. And I would also like to have a gallery control so the user can view all the line items that are related to the expense. For my right container control, I will go and insert a horizontal container. These are responsive containers where controls that you add within it are stacked horizontally. This I would like to place right below the line items control. And this needs to take the entire remaining height. For the X property of this container, set it to 0. Our button control, I have renamed to BT and header. So for the Y property of this container, the button control dot Y plus the button control dot height. So it sits right below that. The width of this container would be parent dot width, and the height would be parent dot height minus my button control dot Y minus my button control dot height. So it takes that remaining real estate at the bottom. Within this container control, we want to add our gallery and our form control. With the container control selected, I will go and insert a vertical gallery. And I want to insert a form control, which will also have a button to allow the user to submit or save the information of that form. Inside this container, I will insert another container. This time, a vertical container. And in this container, I will insert the edit form control and insert a button. For the form control, the data source will be line items. Data cards are created for us. Now these cards are stacked in a 3-column format. I can simply change this to a 1-column format since I have more real estate to play with. For fields, I will go to edit fields, description. I will make it a multi-line text so it adds more real estate. And here, I want to add that expense lookup column of mine. To do that, I will go to add fields, search for expense lookup, and add the expense lookup column. The mode of this form, I will switch to new. If I preview the app, this now has the line items form created for me. Title, description, category, which are those choices. Expense lookup will provide all the expenses information from the expenses table so the user can relate to an expense. But in our case, we already have an expense and the user is trying to create a line item for this specific expense. So to have this expense lookup pre-set up for the user, I will select this card, go to advanced, unlock the card since we are making changes, head over to the default property of the card, and we will change to our gallery control of expenses, which I have renamed to expenses gallery. So default value is expenses gallery dot selected. The selected item of this gallery is what will show up right here. If I preview this, we can see it in action. I have added another expense. If I was to select training, now this will have the expense lookup directly linked to training. And this is something that we do not need to show to the user. So we can go ahead and hide this data card by setting its visible property to false. For the button control, change this text to save line item. If we head over to properties, the alignment in the container, I'll place it in the center. The width, I will increase it to 150 so it fits the text that I entered. And when the user selects this, we would want to go ahead and submit our form. I have renamed the form to line items form. On select of this button, submit the form, the name of my form. And for the form control, there is a property called on success. When this data is successfully submitted to my backend table, which is line items, I want this form control to open up the new line item creation experience. I want the form to be reset. So I will use a formula called reset form, and I'll provide the name of my form control. For the gallery control, I want the data to come from line items. So I will select line items. And it should showcase the items based upon the related expense. To filter the data, I will leverage the filter function. Filter my line items where my expense lookup column dot expense is equal to my expenses gallery dot selected dot expense. Let's preview the app and try this out. For my training expense, line items information, I'll add a training receipt. I'll pick the category as miscellaneous. The expense type is already preset for me. I'll click Save Line Item. We can see it running in action. The gallery for line items shows that information. The form has reset. So this allows the user to add additional line item. Here's another one. I'll click Save. Now for expense reporting, when users add line items, they typically upload receipts. I need to give the ability to the user to upload a receipt, an image, plus also want the user to enter the amount related to the line item. I will once again save my app, and this time to make changes to the table, instead of going to data, selecting our table, clicking on the 3 ellipses for more actions, going to edit data and adding those additional columns. In my case, amount and receipt, type currency and type image. Those type options are not available here since this is the quick creation experience. To get those additional column types, I will click on the Build tab. This will list out all my Microsoft Teams for which an app has been created. I will select my Contoso team. This will list out all the components created for this team. I will click on See All. I will click on Tables, select my line item table, and click on Edit. This now opens up the full table designer experience. Here, if I go to Add Column, I will be presented with a lot more options. I'll create a column called Amount. The data type I will pick as currency. You can see a lot more options opened up for us. I'll make this a required field and click Done. I'll add another column. I've called this Receipt. Data type will be Image. I will click Done. I will save my table. Once I have made my changes, I will go to Apps, my expense report app, go to 3 ellipses, Edit. Once again, launches the PowerApp's Studio experience for editing our expense report app. For the line items form, I want to add my new columns that I created. So I'll go to Edit Fields, go to Add Field, select Amount, and select Receipt, and click Add. This will add those data cards to the form. To change the format of this form to 2 column, I'll swap to 2. I can reposition things. So I have the title of my line item. I'll place the receipt on the top. For the receipt data card, if we want to make changes, we can unlock the card. Here, I'll just squeeze it in a little. And the text, I will change this to Add or Update Receipt. Amount, I will move it to the left. Amount is a mandatory field. If there are any columns you created in the backend data source as mandatory, they will show up here as mandatory. If you would like to make it mandatory inside this form control, we also have that option. Simply unlock the data card, go to the required property and set this to true. Now if I preview the app, I'll select the training expense. Maybe I bought the on-demand package for training. For the receipt, when I select this, Since I am in the browser experience for Microsoft Teams, it will provide me an option to select an image file from my file explorer. If I was to run the same app on my mobile device, it will allow me to open my camera control and take an image of the receipt live, or I can choose an image from my pictures gallery. In this case, I'll select my receipt, I'll plug in the amount and click Save. For my line items gallery, if I head over to Properties, I have more real estate to play with. I'll change the wrap count to 2. So this will showcase 2 line items in a single row. I'll edit the gallery. For the image control, now that I have the receipt, I can use this item dot receipt and it will showcase that image inside this gallery experience. If you want to increase the height of the gallery template, there's a property for the gallery called template size. I'll increase this to 100. Can increase the height of the image. And for the gallery, we can add some template padding. I want to give the ability to the users to edit existing line items. For that, I need the edit icon. Icons are not available inside the PowerApp Studio experience for Teams. However, in the template that got created, we do see an icon control here. I can simply copy this, go to my gallery, edit, and paste it in here. Now, since I copied this control, it will also get its properties. Like on select, there's some code. I'm going to remove that code. And the visible property also has some code. We will change this to visible true. I want to position this on the top right. Y property will be 0. X property will be parent dot template width minus self dot width. And when the user selects this, I would like to showcase the selected line item information inside the form. To do that, on select of edit, we will use the function edit form, the line items form. And for the form control, there's a property called item. This would be the line items gallery dot selected. Let's try this out. Preview, training. I'll click edit. It opens up the training information here. Let's go and add a receipt. I'll click on save line item. It says amount is required. I'll enter 1000, click save. The updates come through right here. And I can do the same thing for other items. Once again, this is a gallery control. I can copy, paste, add additional labels, showcase additional pieces of information, for example, the amount, and so on and so forth. If I would like to showcase the total amount of all the line items, in my line items header section, I will showcase the amount right here. I'll use the sum function on line items gallery dot all items, and I will sum the amount. And that gives me the total amount of all the items. If I preview this, we can see it live here in action. Now all this works great for existing expenses that I can edit, add line items, and so on and so forth. But for new expenses, we will run into certain issues. The expense form is new, the line items form is new. But expense lookup is still showcasing an earlier record because that was pre-selected by the user. So here we need to take some additional steps since we are handling the new form experience. The first key step is when the user saves the line item. Here we are directly submitting the data of this form. But in case of new form, we do not have the information of the expense yet since the user has not yet saved the expense. So we need to hold off submitting the line items until the expense is created. To do that, I will first have to check the mode of my expense form. If expense form dot mode is equal to form mode dot new, in this case, create a collection called call line items. In this, I will save the data of that form, which is my line items form dot updates. Put a semicolon. So reset form, the line item form. I'll put a comma. I'll go ahead and close my if condition. This is what my formula looks like. For the gallery control, where we are showcasing the line items, in case of the expense being a new expense, my data should come from that collection and not from my data source. Once again, if expense form.mode is form_mode.new, then show the data directly from the collection. Else, continue with the formula that I had before. Here's the full formula for the items property. Now, if I was to preview the app, I'm trying to create a new expense. Let's try and add some line items. Remember, the expense lookup column, we do not have to show, and the value in this is incorrect. We will fix this. For now, we'll ignore that and click Save. We can see that this data is gone in the collection. The image will not show up, but it is stored in the collection. Once the user submits the main expense form, on success of the expense form is where we need to update that collection and patch that collection to our data source. We will keep the formula of on success as is, and here we will add the following formula. If the form is in new mode, and there is a property called new mode already present for us, it's a local variable, so I'll just leverage that. If the form is new, I need to patch my collection to my line items table. Patch my data source, which is my line items table, and patch the collection, which is collection of line items. I'll put a semicolon. Go ahead and clear that collection. Now I'll close my if condition. But this collection may have an incorrect reference to the expense lookup. The expense was not yet created. So we need to update this collection. Update if we want to update all the items. So the condition is true. And the update is only on the expense lookup column. And the update here would be self, which is the expense form control itself, dot last submit. I'll close the if condition. This completes my formula. Let's preview the app. New expense not yet created. I have a line item. I'm adding another line item. So 2 line items, total being 83. I click submit and watch the magic happen. Here is that new line item that got created called company meeting. Here are the details. Here are the related expenses. And the user can once again get in here, edit the expense information, or start updating these line items on the fly. I'm going to change the amount to 50, click save. We'll see the changes going through right away. The expense status, I would want to make this pending by default. I can go ahead and firstly unlock this card. Go to the default property of this card. If my expense form.mode is form_mode.new, then the expense status enum.pending is what I would like to utilize. Else, keep the value as it is. Preview the app. These are existing items. If I click on new, it will default to pending. Now this, we can make it available for changes to specific users. This could come from a security group. This you can check to see the ownership of the group. In my case, I'll keep it simple. In the app on start, I will define who my approvers are. Here's a collection that I've created on app on start. I have my approver email addresses lined up here. I'm in the edit experience of the app. Right click, run app on start. So this collection has the values. For the data card, the display mode would be if current logged in user's email is in my collection of approvers dot approver. So I'll set the card to display mode.edit, else display mode.view. If I preview the app, if I edit this item, I get this option to make a change since I am one of the approvers. Next, to publish this app so users can start utilizing this app inside that Microsoft Teams, I'll go to publish to Teams, click next. This will go ahead and publish the app. And then save and close. For my Contoso team, for my expense reports tab, here's my app. I am playing the role of the approver, so I can edit and make changes to the expense status and save. If that user opens the app and goes to edit, the approval status would be disabled for that user. they try and create a new item, the status would be pending by default. Related to the delete functionality, for the expense form, if you look at the visible property, it's set to this formula. So I'm going to copy this. And for the container that we added at the bottom, I will set the same formula for its visible property. And for the button control that shows the heading for line items, I will use the same formula for the visible property. So if the user was to delete a specific item, it opens this dialog. Also, ensure that the delete confirm overlay container is sitting right at the top of the right container control. You can do that by clicking this, going to reorder and bring it to the front. When delete is selected, we have the following formula in play. This goes ahead and removes the expense, but not the related line items. To remove the related line items, right before the update context function, we will add a remove if function, remove from the line items table, where our expense lookup column dot expense is equal to, there is a property that gives us the selected record that is being deleted, which is the expense record. So I'll just leverage that, dot expense. Close the formula, put a semicolon. So now if I was to delete an expense, all the related line items of that expense would also be deleted. To update the security of the tables, back to the Build tab of Power Apps, my Contoso team, head over to See All, go to Tables, select your table, and go to Manage Permissions. As an owner of the team, you have the ability to change the security. Here, owners have full access on all the tables, but members and guest users, you can define the access. Members currently have full access to the expense table, so they can create, read, update, and delete all the records. But if you want them to only update and delete their own records, you can change the security. And there are multiple options to select from. Once you're done with your change, click Save. I can do the same thing for guest users as well, who by default have private access. You can also bring in users who are outside of your team to utilize the app by using a feature known as Share with Colleagues. And this is where you define the security of colleagues. And to bring in those additional users, you go to App. Here we have Share with Colleagues. This is where you define the security group that you would like to share this app with. Now I will showcase an extended version of that app. Here are all the expenses in the system. I am playing the role of the owner. I can see everyone's expenses. I've also showcased the image of the person who's created the expense. I have my status. I have styled and designed my gallery to showcase data in the form of cards. I also have a chart control that is showcasing the information of all the expenses in the system and their statuses. The table at the bottom showcases this information. I have two items that are in new status. One's approved, one's rejected, one's pending. Let's pick the one that is in the new status, edit this, and change its status to pending, save. You will see all the changes happening on the fly inside this Power App. And all of this is responsive in nature. As I start reducing the width, you can see the behavior or the controls of this app are realigning or repositioning themselves. Here I'm logged in as a user Sarah. Sarah will only and only see her own records in the system, and that's because of the security that we've put in place in the backend table. The design inspiration for this app comes from an app that was shared by Nee. Here he utilizes the HTML control to add a shadow effect to the background. That's what I leveraged in my app. If you enjoyed this video, then do like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and thank you so much for watching.